Let's move to our next discussion. Now, the rescue operation at the scene of the collapsed 21-story building in Ikoyi is yet to reach ground zero. The number of survivors of the collapsed building in Ikoyi has risen to 15, and at least 42 bodies have been recovered from the rubble. Our correspondent, Adedoja Salamadeni, gives us update on this.
1 week after the incident, the site has not been absent of onlookers who throng to this area to catch a glimpse of what is happening. The heap of debris has reduced and trailers have not stopped working. The help desk is still functioning, and 49 families have been able to fill the missing persons register. 42 bodies have so far been recovered from here, and the number of those rescued remains 15. Some of them discharged from the hospitals. One Samson, 20-year-old Samson, is said to be in coma. No relative of victims around here at the time of this report. We learned most of them were directed to go for the identification of bodies at the infectious disease hospital, Yaba. The Lagos State government has also started DNA examinations for bodies difficult to identify by families. This will no doubt go down in history as one of the worst incidents of building collapses in Lagos State, and it might be the beginning of finding lasting solutions to such tragic incidents, as Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu had already set up a tribunal to unravel the causes of this building collapse, and he said anyone found wanting would face the full wrath of the law after the panel submitted report 26 days time. Adedoja Salamadeni, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, that's just the background of the story. Everyone has been following this development. Joining me now is the National President, Building Collapse Prevention Guild, Architect George Akinola. It's nice to have you join me in the studio today.
Thank you.
Great. Now, this is a very sad period for everyone, those who have been following the development of the collapsed building. And this is, of course, not the first or second or third or fourth or fifth time this is happening within parts of Lagos. But talk to us, especially knowing that there is a guild for prevention of collapsed building. Why do we still have this issues of collapsed building here and there? Give us some of the elements of it.
Okay. I remember the last time I was here, you asked a similar question, and I told you that we should still expect more collapses. And you asked why. I said because this problem that we are facing is systemic. A problem that has been festering for decades cannot just go away overnight. And the reasons are quite simple. Number one, reasons of building procurement. How do we procure our buildings? Number two, the attitudes of clients. People who work with us, people who hire us as professionals, they don't really understand that we are the only ones that are trained to produce buildings. They believe they can get away with anything. They procure materials themselves, we push aside, the fees of professionals, push aside the competence of professionals and the supervision of the projects. Procure buildings from, procure designs and approvals from, the various planning authorities, by hook or by crook. And finally, when it comes to building control, you find a lot of people exercising, who I know and who you know in the terms of getting the people to really do the right thing. So building control is frustrated too, in a way. That does not exonerate the government officials, but at the same time, they are hamstrung. And of course, the issue of manpower. In Lagos especially, apart from all over the other parts of the federation, in Lagos especially, the state government does not have the manpower to man the sites. As I said earlier, over 10,000 sites are going on in Lagos every day. How do you now man those sites, in terms of the architects that you supervise, the structural engineers, the quantity surveyors and all the rest.
Yeah, but the point there is, these buildings also are not raised overnight. The point there is, it takes a period of maybe 6 months to 1 year to 2 years for any one building to be completed. So within that period of time, whether you don't have or they don't have the manpower, would it not have been easy to go around in checking, whether you check at the first stage or you check at the second stage or the third stage, as the case may be? Wouldn't that have
They
been
don't
possible?
have the manpower. If you know the logistics, if you do the calculations, we have done it.
Okay.
And we have suggested strongly that the professionals are brought into the mix. If the professionals are brought into the mix after designing and submission to the town planning authorities and approval, then you engage the institutes who have the professionals, especially the architects and the structural engineers who have the professionals in almost all nooks and crannies of this particular state. Engage them in oversight functions. Continue to engage them to supervise and check what the people that are contracted is different from oversight, that are contracted to do the job are doing, so that at any time there won't be any loophole. As I keep saying, in all the interviews that we are granting, we are everywhere because we either live in a particular local government or we work there. So whichever way when you are passing, moving around and so on and so forth, you notice these errors and then you flag that this particular building looks as if it has a problem. Please, government agencies, go and check. And then they go and check.
Do you raise alarm at times like that?
Yeah, that's what we do. We don't have any coercive powers. We are an NGO, we are a private organization. But the reason why we are so prominent is this unfortunate issue of collapses. But even the media houses, they don't engage us when there is no collapse. It's only when you hear collapse that you say, there's a particular organization called Building Control, Building Collapse Prevention Guild, and then you look for us. That shouldn't be. It should be a continuous engagement.
Yeah. On the other hand, you will also be expected that since that is your primary responsibility, you can also engage the media, because from engineers to doctors to farmers to other people, everyone is jostling for the attention of the media one way or the other. So because the media will always be here as a partner in this regard. Now, apart from raising an alarm to the government, what would it look like to go to court, for instance, if you have a situation like that where you know that this building has a defect one way or the other, and you go to court to seek an injunction based on whatever finding you have had to stop them from continuing? That's
a good one. But at the same time, these things cost money. A private organization, we are self-sponsored, self-financed, We have done that before, either pre or post collapse. Like the Synagogue Church of All Nations collapse, we were heavily involved, both in getting materials together, in preparing the investigative reports, and in the litigation, and we shed serious light on, what actually happened. The one of the Lagos, the Lekki buildings, Lekki collapse, where it concerned like a 5-story building, changed to 6 or 7. We were heavily involved in the litigation too. But you see, these things cost money. And it's a private organization, self-sponsored. So we are limited in a way. But it does not still preclude us that every month, which we intend to accelerate now, every month, we come and address the press and flag a couple of buildings that are suspected, of suspicious procurement. We flag them and then we expect the government to do the rest. But by and large, there is a program we have that we put together a long time ago, which is called codification of buildings and professionals. What does this mean? Everything is data-driven these days. So whichever building that is coming up must have a designer, must have a street number, must have an approval number, and when you are building, that building already has a tag, and that tag is based on all this data that I've already given out. So when any problem happens to any building, all you need to do is go to the computer, and then it comes out that this building was procured by so client, that The building is on so address. It was designed by so architects, so engineers, so surveyor, and so on and so forth. And these are the problems on it. So that codification is seriously being pursued. We have submitted memorandum and memoranda to different places, different governments, different state governments. We submitted all this. And if they take action on them and collaborate more with us, well, this thing will reduce to a very manageable level.
Okay.
By the way, sir, let me tell you this. Collapses will continue. It's not because the president of Building Collapse Prevention Guild is here, is talking about it, and we're doing it. No. We have to keep at it on a daily basis, on a minute-by-minute basis, to ensure that in the next 5 years, in the next 6 years or so, collapses will reduce to their barest minimum. Buildings that are standing, you don't know which one is sick. So many sick buildings all over the whole place right now that are on the way to collapse.
How do you identify a defective building, for instance? Take us through that, because we just see a building. We just see a building. Some of them very beautiful, some of them look so nice, but from your own microscopic eyes, you would know, okay, there's something wrong. But how do you identify a defective building?
Okay. A sick building. You can, for example, if you see a building and you want to determine its level of fitness, there are certain aspects. Some very simple, some not so easy to identify, and some complex. The simple ones, okay, you see a building and the building is leaning. Then you know there's something wrong.
But maybe from the eyes of the layman, maybe that's the design. No, it could look very beautiful.
Leaning
like that. Exactly, you know.
Okay. No, a building is never designed like that. If a building is designed to lean, you will notice the intent of the designer to achieve that.
Right.
You know, we've done buildings like that, but a sick building is a sick building. You just see that it's bending.
All right.
Okay, then of course, you can notice some little cracks here and there. Maybe on the walls, you see some cracks that are widening. You see a beam or a slab, with spalding and all the rest on it, or a beam that is, opening up, which is subject to tension, and you suddenly notice that, all those things are. And then, of course, the medium signs. Let me go back to the first one. There are some little problems. You see a signboard that's supposed to be on the entrance to the site. You see it not properly documented, not properly tidied up.
It tells you something is wrong.
Yes, because somebody is trying to hide something.
I see.
Then the medium. You notice that some buildings, when you enter, you either hear some funny sounds, like it may take time, because there are two types of collapses. You have the prolonged collapse that will take time before it manifests. And you have the sudden collapse, like the one that happened in Ikoyi. Sudden, it's without warning, then it just comes down. So when you hear all these noises, you see a particular slab, probably above, spalding, removing the flakes of the covering. And then you see the reinforcement. The reinforcements are beginning to rust. The reinforcements are beginning to lose fiber, as in they come apart. Then something imminent is going to happen. Of course, if you go to a particular site and you see the way they are doing they are mixing their materials, the kind of materials they are using. For example, you want to use a 16 mm specified reinforcement rod. You see them using 12. It takes a trained eye to be able to observe that. Or you notice that instead of 12 mm, they are using 10. They are using 10 or 8. That's a red flag. But of course, in some cases, you notice in the Nigerian market that you don't have this kind of reinforcement rods saying who or what they actually are. Let me give you an example. A 12 mm rod now in the market, unless it's properly measured as you are delivering to site, you notice that it's actually 10.5 mm. Whereas the structural engineer has calculated for 12 mm in terms of its the reinforcement of the property. So you use 10 mm at a particular distance, or 10.5 mm at a particular distance, there's going to be a problem. Or the issue now, we are getting to the complex of reinforcement. Reinforcement design, workmanship of that reinforcement,
Okay.
workmanship of the mix of the concrete, workmanship of the way the building is put together. Is it done by the proper artisan? Is it supervised? Is it done by a competent contractor? Is it properly supervised by the consultant? When you get to a site and the consultant does not get to this, I mean the supervising consultant does not get to decide like just once in a month, you are going to have problems. Because contractors, some very unscrupulous contractors may want to take advantage and, you know, sharp practices. So all those ones. Then to the highly complex, sinking holes. A sinking hole is a natural phenomenon that occurs whereby there will be a sinking hole some distance away and it will be affecting the building in another place.
What is a sinking hole?
That's what I'm saying. A sinking hole is a naturally occurring phenomenon whereby a particular part of the earth surface just goes down.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It just goes down. And when it goes down, maybe 10 kilometers away, it can affect the building. That is. For example,
just like you have landslides in some places.
Yes. Right. This one that happened now, this collapse. You know, it will create some tremors. Some tremors because of the, you know, impact on the soil, vibrational impact on the soil, and tremors will travel horizontally, concentrically in the neighborhood. A building that is not properly procured, some 10 meters, 50 meters, 200 meters away, might suffer cracks. And you will not be able to trace it traceable to that building because the building next to this particular one that collapsed is not collapsing or is not showing any because it was properly procured. The one that is like half a kilometer away is showing signs and you will not be able to trace it to it. Then of course, foundations. Foundations are a serious matter because the foundations of a building, there are stages. Before you do your foundation, when the structural engineer goes ahead to design a foundation, he does a soil test. And the soil test shows, okay, this particular soil can take this amount of load, you know, blah, blah, blah. So when you are designing...
So some places are swampy.
Some places are swampy, some
others
places
are rocky.
Rocky, loamy, you know, sandy, all kinds of soils.
Yeah.
So there's a particular type of foundation for every type of soil.
Right.
So if you do the particular type of foundation that is needed for that particular soil, for that height of building, for that volume of the building, for that size, you are not going to have problems. But when you now do a design for a sandy soil, you now put the what you're supposed to put on a very bad soil like a like the ones we have in Ikoyi, you know, Lagos Island. The soil is very bad.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's very close to the sea. There is salt effect on it, and then the texture of the soil is not so.
All right, we don't have all the time, but let me ask you this question before we go. You know, you keep saying that there's going to be continuous collapse building as we get along, so long as nothing is done about some of the structures we have around. You've said this before and you're saying it again. What do we do at this point?
Well, the best thing to do is to start doing integrity analysis on all our buildings. So you can have a structured method of carrying out this integrity analysis. You start with the critical, you know, the ones that are looking like under threat, or the ones that are that are high rises, and that are likely to be very, very costly if they should come down. So you do integrity analysis. You can start from the very urban areas and the very dense areas like Lagos Island, like Ikoyi, like Lekki. Then you come down to the mainland. In a structured, organized approach, continue to do integrity analysis on all these buildings. Both ones that are under construction and the ones that have been constructed a long time ago. Then you will begin to discover the errors that have been committed. Either errors of materials procurement, errors of materials usage, errors of design, and so on and so forth. You know. So
all right. Well, we'll look forward to that kind of a situation where people's lives are guaranteed and property too, because test and integrity checks have been made. Thank you so much, Architect George Akinola, for coming on the program. We certainly will be having this discussion as more often so we can create better awareness.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
having
very
me.
much. Thank you.
Right.
Right.